So this right here is a photo from the year 1980 of a girl called Paula Boloveski. And while I'd love to show you some more updated photos of this beautiful young woman, maybe when she graduated high school, going to prom, maybe when she graduated university or got married, or photos of her children, I'm unfortunately unable to do so because in the year 1980, two individuals decided that they wanted to sexually assault Paula, and in order to complete that, they dragged her behind a building, beat her over the head with a cinder block, and then stabbed her to death. Now, of course, this happened in the year 1980, not in current year, so obviously we had a much more serious response with our criminal justice system than we would have today. These individuals were actually convicted and sentenced to life in prison, and that seemed like all she wrote on this particular case, but unfortunately, New York State in modern day, post the Black Lives Matter riots, post all these ridiculous criminal justice reforms, in their infinite wisdom, decided to release both of the killers, and one of them has been rearrested for a very similar crime. And this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
Now, the two killers in this particular crime are called Richard Labrera and Robert McCain. Robert McCain is pictured right here, so you can get a good look at him because he is the focus of today's story. And McCain's role in this particular crime was dragging this girl behind the back of the house and hitting her over the head with the cinder block in order to initiate the sexual assault. Again, this was the motivation, the targeting of a young girl who is walking home from a shift at a library in a public place with violent means in order to get sexual gratification. We all understand what this guy did, and he should have been locked away. In fact, both of these people should have been locked away for the rest of their natural lives. However, after the George Floyd death, and we passed a bunch of different criminal justice reforms, and in the hysteria of COVID, where we were oh so worried about these sad sack criminals, these innocent Bebe Angel Aladdins, who only beat this girl and stabbed her to death to feed their starving families, we decided to grant them a mercy release, gave them parole even though they were not deserving of it, and now we have another female victim in a public place at the hands of Robert McCain.
This is where it all started. Back in October of 1980, Paula Boloveski was just 16 years old when she was leaving work here at the Pearl River Library. As she was walking home, she was gruesomely attacked, sexually assaulted, and then killed by two men, one of whom will get to walk free once again.
6-year-old Robert McCain went before the parole board earlier this month, and they are granting him parole. He can be released as early as August 3rd, 2 days after Paula's birthday. Once released, he will be under community supervision for the rest of his life. McCain and Richard Labrera were both convicted of killing Paula. Labrera was already paroled for the crime back in 2019. He returned to prison, though, for violating his parole, but has since been released. Paula's mother was too upset to speak with News 12, but a family advocate tells us that she is crushed by the decision.
Now, to be 100% clear, the decision to parole these individuals was not lacking in controversy at the time that it was decided in the year 2021. The community, Rockland County as a whole, spoke out against it. They did not want this guy back in the community because they understood that if he was willing to do this to an innocent 16-year-old girl, this kind of depravity is something that time just doesn't overcome. But unfortunately, this wave of woke criminal justice reform had taken hold in New York State's legislature, and they didn't give a damn about any communities, any future victims. All they wanted to do was protect the criminals because in reality, the criminals are the real victims of society. You also had Representative Zoran Mamdani, who is set to become the next mayor of the city of New York, talking about how every single individual over the age of 50 deserves automatic clemency, which of course would have included this individual right here. And that kind of attitude and that kind of mindset is what brought us to this very day where Robert McCain, who should have been in prison for the rest of his natural life, victimized another woman. He did it again, and none of us should be surprised.
There was shock in 1980 after the murder of a suburban teenager. anger in 2021 when the convicted killer was paroled, and now today, outrage because he's been rearrested.
Now, they give all these different adjectives about the chain of events that led to this particular crime, and it's very understandable that the only time the people of Rockland County were shocked and or surprised was at the initial crime, at the initial murder, because every step of the way post this murder, once they knew what these men were capable of, they understood the assignment, they understood that they should be locked up and the key should be thrown away. And honestly, if New York State had the death penalty, these two individuals would have been ideal candidates for it. And by the way, if there was ever a case for the death penalty, it's exactly this, because you may think that you're putting somebody away for an extended period of time. That's absolute scum that should never see the light of day. But all it takes is a bunch of Zorhan Mondanis to get into office in the state house of your state. And guess what? All of a sudden, you're deserving of mercy no matter what you did, as long as you've aged up above the age of 50. Because in reality, you're not likely to reoffend. It's not like it's going to happen again. It's not like these predictable consequences that everybody could see coming absolutely 100% happened as predicted. Mamdani would never sell you out like that in order to feed his ridiculous ego and terrible ideology.
The 1980 murder of 16-year-old Paula Bohoveski, grabbed off the street near an abandoned home in Pearl River.
The body was found at the base of a tree by a passerby around 8:45 this morning.
It's very heartbreaking. We used to have a business in Pearl River, so I do remember it very well.
2 men were convicted and sent to prison. Now one of them, Robert McCain, paroled in 2021, is back behind bars, and many are outraged.
Probably let him back out again. It's not fair. The justice system is not where it should be.
So one of the things that's so depressing about Democratic rule in places like New York is that in reality, they are wonderful places to live. Like, you get 4 seasons here. There's a lot of benefits and things to enjoy about living in New York. And by the way, these people don't live in New York City. They likely live in a very red area, a very red part of the state of New York, and yet they are reduced to this cynicism because the system has brought this upon us. She looks directly at this and says, you know, they'll probably just let him out again. They'll probably give him another chance. They'll probably say he's an innocent Beba Angel Aladdin, because in reality, while we focus a lot on bail reform on this channel, which is a law that allows you to get same-day automatic releases for repeat offenses, and a lot of them are incredibly egregious, we also have laws like less is more, which basically makes it damn near impossible to violate the probation or parole of individuals, because the systemic systems and the systemic structures were deemed to be too unfair when parole officers could violate the parole of people just because they were committing the same types of crime. I mean, isn't that like a form of evil white racism or white supremacism or a war on poverty? Like, shouldn't we actually be looking for poverty in the 1980s for the murder of Paula Bohoveski rather than the 2 individuals that beat her to death and then stabbed her to death in order to basically pleasure themselves on that 16-year-old girl? Isn't the real issue that they just didn't have enough money, that they didn't have enough welfare handed to them, that we didn't provide them with free housing? I mean, when you think about it, after you bash your own head with a concrete block, Mamdani makes a lot of sense in his dumbass policies.
McCain was arrested Wednesday after an alleged incident at this dog park in northern Westchester County. County police say McCain was chatting with a woman when he suddenly forcibly touched her.
I mean, imagine my shock that a man who abducted a 16-year-old girl off the streets for sexual gratification and then violently attacked her and killed her when he didn't get said gratification would turn around and decide to do something similar and violently grab on a woman in a public place because he wanted something from her that he didn't think she was willing to give up. I mean, it's just so shocking and so surprising, and honestly, I'm just stunned by this whole sequence of events. Who could have thought that people who already offended might actually try re-offending? I don't even know if I said that word correctly. Re-offending? I'm not sure how that's pronounced. I don't think I've ever heard of that concept. I don't think I've ever heard of that idea, because I've been spending a lot of time listening to Democratic state legislators in the state of New York.
Congressman Mike Lawler is among the many who actively opposed parole for McCain in 2021.
When you release somebody who is capable of committing such a heinous act without any remorse, that is only a matter of time before that individual offends again.
So Lawler right here is a congressman who has been on this case since the parole hearings, and good for him for doing so. But one of the things that I find to be absolutely crucial is the fact that McCain, the killer in this particular instance, one of the two, was actually somebody who is unrepentant for his previous crime, and yet they paroled him anyway. This is something that should not be done. It should be unheard of. It should be ridiculous. But of course, this was not the attitude and the temperature in the country post the George Floyd hysteria, post people like Mamdani being elected to the state legislature. So the parole board released him anyway. They said, no big deal. Shut up, community that's outraged by it. It's not going to be a problem. And if it is a problem, then maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to deploy the social workers to arrest poverty. Maybe McCain actually needs midnight basketball in order to stop attacking women.
Paula was killed after leaving work at the Pearl River Library. Her mother still lives nearby and told me she was afraid McCain would reoffend after being released. At his 2019 parole hearing, McCain denied any involvement in the murder of Paula Bohoveski. Friday, the state moved to revoke his parole and send him back to prison. He will spend the weekend at the Westchester County lockup before a court appearance next week.
I mean, again, it's just absurd in every possible way. This guy is still denying his participation in the crime. He's still denying that he had any involvement, despite the fact that the evidence is overwhelming. And yet, the parole board released him. Normally, typically, one of the things you have to do is actually acknowledge guilt, acknowledge fault, and talk about how you've changed your perspective. But this guy is completely incapable of that. And the only people that are surprised that he reoffended are, of course, New York State Democrats and New York City Democrats, who can't possibly imagine somebody committing a crime because they have something in their nature that predisposes them to that behavior. But that's exactly who Robert McCain is. We already knew that, and yet New York decided that it was okay to unleash him onto the streets, and if he hurt other people, no big deal. Don't worry about it. It's okay because we're criminal justice reformers. We're the humanitarians. And again, as we see time and time again, this kind of sympathy or bending the knee to the perpetrator is oftentimes just another form of an attack on the victim. Why should this girl's mother have to live in fear, the one who was murdered back in 1980, of this guy retaliating against her for this particular crime? Why should this other woman have to be groped on a park bench in the state of New York by a criminal who is already sentenced to a life sentence? And the reason why is because the progressives have willed it this way. They decided that this was appropriate. They decided that this was acceptable. They decided that Robert McCain being able to walk despite never acknowledging the vicious nature of his crime was an acceptable consequence, and everybody hurt in the process, it didn't matter to them because criminals are the innocent Bebe Angel Aladdins. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a convicted killer doing it again. Till next time.